Boeing has fired its CEO Dennis Muilenberg. The company has struggled to win back the trust of the public after 2 fatal crashes. The company announced today that Muilenberg had been asked to step down. His resignation is effective immediately. Chairman David Calhoun will replace him, and he will become the manufacturer's new CEO starting next month.
The fallout from the crashes involving Boeing's 737 MAX planes has consumed the embattled aerospace company. They sparked numerous investigations, including a federal criminal probe by the Federal Aviation Administration in 2017. Separately, last week, the company was forced to abort a mission to the International Space Station involving one of its rockets. So joining us now on the phone is CBS News transportation correspondent Kris Van Cleave. Okay, Kris, this sort of caught us off guard, but maybe it didn't catch you off guard. How did Boeing come to this decision and why?
Well, I'm told the decision was a cumulative one. And if you look at just the last month, you get a sense for why there was a growing feeling that a change was going to come. I think most people expected that Dennis Muilenberg would stay the CEO through the grounding of the 737 MAX. And once that airplane was flying again, you would see a change in leadership at some point after that, with the thought being it's better to keep Muilenberg in the hot seat, so to speak, until the plane was flying again, as opposed to bring somebody else in and have them face questions about a time where they weren't leading the company. However, you look at the last month or so where you had, go back to middle of November, so just over a month ago, Boeing put out an update saying that it expected to deliver planes by the end of the year. That really upset the FAA. In fact, the FAA administrator put out a video pushing back and sent a letter to staff saying take as much time as you need. That was a real low point in the relationship between Boeing and the FAA. Since then, you have had the very clear pronouncement that the ungrounding of the 737 MAX won't happen until next year. Boeing has halted production on the 737 MAX starting in January, the first time in 22 years Boeing has had to temporarily halt airplane production. You had the Starlifter failed test due to a software glitch. You have had continued reports, and we have reported this as well, that regulators have been very dissatisfied with Boeing's documentation as they're going through the process of trying to unground this airplane and recertify it, that they have felt that the documentation has been incomplete. It's been kicked back to Boeing a number of times. So you start to get a laundry list, not to mention you have members of Congress, victims' families, some of the families from the 346 people who have died in the 737 MAX crashes, have called for Muilenberg's resignation. The chairman of the House Transportation and Infrastructure Committee has called for his resignation. Senator Blumenthal has called for his resignation. You had mounting calls, mounting pressure both at the regular level, at the congressional level, as well as probably at the Wall Street level, as it's been one bad piece of news after another here, that some felt it was a leadership problem. In fact, what Boeing has said is the board decided they needed to make this change to try to restore confidence with regulators and repair that relationship, as well as with Boeing's customers and with the public, as well as with Wall Street.
Well, Boeing announced it will temporarily shut down the production of its 737 MAX next month. So, Kris, talk to us a little bit about what forced them into that move.
Well, Boeing has been building the 737 even though they've not been able to deliver them. And as this grounding went on longer than anticipated, Boeing started saying during as early as its second quarter earnings call that if the grounding became prolonged and stretched into 2020, they'd have to consider either a sharp reduction in the airplane's production or suspending production. And that's what they've done. They built about 400 of these airplanes that they can't deliver. So some of this is just a function of where do you put 400 737s. They have filled up an employee parking lot at the Renton facility where it's been built. They've filled up all the tarmac space there. They've been parking them in central Washington and in San Antonio. So you just had a logistic of where do you put them? How do you start to deliver them once they're able to be delivered? And it's also, I mean, these are $80 to $100 million aircraft. It's expensive. It's a huge outlay of cash. So it just stopped making both business and logistical sense to keep pumping them out at a rate of 42 a month.
Do you think that that had something also to do with the decision to let Muilenberg go, that if he was meant to sort of stay on until hopefully that those planes could fly again, if they decide, look, we're not even making any more, which means we're not going to try to sell anymore, what's the point of having him on?
Well, they fully intend to resume production of the 737 MAX. I don't want to give the impression that they have abandoned the airplane. They have 5,000 orders for the airplane.
Wow.
4,500 of them unfilled. So the 737 MAX is expected to be about a third of Boeing's revenue over the next 5 years, just that one airplane. So it is crucially important to Boeing's financial well-being that this get resolved. Boeing wants to fly a safe airplane. And they believe they have the software fixes complete, that they have addressed the failings of the 737 MAX that led to these crashes. The regulatory process has taken longer than expected. Regulators feel some of that is on Boeing, and certainly the delay in something that Boeing felt could have, should have, would have been done sooner is going to fall on the guy in charge. I can tell you, we have seen a marked change in Dennis Muilenberg over the course of this grounding. If you think back to April, he and I had a very contentious exchange at a press conference. As he came out, it was very much sounding like he was blaming the pilots for the crashes, and you've seen a change. Then he sat down with Nora O'Donnell in his only one-on-one TV interview at that point about the MAX crash, and there he acknowledged the mistakes were made. He wouldn't do that in April. Fast forward to October when he's testifying before the Senate, and you saw a chase into Dennis Muilenberg, who is now, we own this. These accidents are on us, and we need to fix it. But throughout all of that time, in fact, as early as a couple weeks ago, he was adamant he was not resigning.
Really interesting stuff, Kris. Thank you so much.